They said a black woman couldn't be a soldier. She became a general. The untold story of Hurriet Tubman. They said a black woman couldn't be a soldier. They said she was too small, too fragile, too powerless to lead men into war. But history remembers differently. Because once, in the deep heart of America's darkest time, a woman rose, not just to fight, but to command. Her name was Hurriet Tubman. Born around 1822, in the chains of slavery in Maryland's Eastern Shore, she began life with no reason to believe she would ever be free. Her real name was Araminta Ross, Minty, they called her. But even as a child, there was something unbreakable in her spirit. She watched the world around her, the cruelty, the whip, the endless fields, and she decided that her soul would never belong to anyone but God. In her early years, Hurriet suffered brutal beatings that left her with permanent scars. Once, when she refused to help capture another enslaved man, an overseer threw a heavy weight that struck her in the head. She nearly died. From then on, she would sometimes fall into sudden, deep sleeps, what doctors now call temporal lobe seizures. But Hurriet called them visions, messages from above, and they would guide her through everything that came next. In her 20s, she made a choice that changed history. She ran. Alone, under the cover of night, guided by the stars and her faith, she escaped the bonds of slavery. Every sound in the woods could have meant death, but she kept walking, miles upon miles, until she reached the free soil of Pennsylvania. For the first time, she breathed the air of freedom. And yet, she could not rest, because her family, her people, was still in chains. Freedom, she said, meant nothing while others remained enslaved, so she went back. And again, over 13 times, Hurriet Tubman returned to the South, risking her life to lead more than 70 people to freedom through what became known as the Underground Railroad. She used disguises, secret signals, and codes in songs. When she sang softly, wade in the water, it meant it was time to move, to travel through rivers, so that bloodhounds could not track their scent. To the enslaved, she was known only as Moses, the woman who would not let her people go. The price on her head grew higher with every journey. Slave catchers hunted her. Posters offered money for her capture, but no one ever succeeded. "I never lost a passenger," she later said, "and I never ran my train off the track." Her courage became a legend whispered in the night, a light of hope in the darkness of the South. Then came the Civil War. In 1861, the nation was torn apart, North against South, freedom against slavery. Many men went to war, but Hurriet Tubman did not stay behind. She saw a new kind of battle, one that needed not only soldiers, but guides, spies, and leaders who understood the land and its people. And so she volunteered for the Union Army. At first, they gave her simple work, cooking, nursing the wounded. But the soldiers soon realized she knew things no one else did. She could navigate the swamps and forests of the South. She could find safe paths, read the whispers of the enslaved, and know where Confederate forces were hiding. Her quiet presence began to shape missions. Hurriet Tubman, the former slave, became a scout and a spy for the United States Army. In 1863, she planned something no woman had ever done before. A full military raid, deep in Confederate territory. It was called the Combahee River Raid, in South Carolina. Tubman worked with Union Colonel James Montgomery, leading hundreds of black soldiers up the river in gunboats. She had gathered intelligence from enslaved people along the banks, maps of the land, the location of mines, and the positions of Confederate troops. In the dark hours before dawn, the Union boats crept silently through the mist. Hurriet stood at the front, guiding them through the narrow waterways she had memorized. Then, as the signal was given, the soldiers charged. They burned Confederate supply lines, freed hundreds of enslaved men, women, and children, and left chaos in their wake. Over 750 people were liberated that day, not by generals in grand uniforms, but by a woman who had once been enslaved herself. Harriet Tubman became the first woman in American history to lead an armed military expedition. When the war ended, Tubman expected to be honored and paid for her service. But like many black soldiers, she received nothing. No salary, no pension, just silence. Yet, she did not stop fighting. After the war, she turned her energy to helping others, the elderly, the poor, and the newly freed. She opened a home for the aged in Auburn, New York, where she lived the rest of her days. She never sought fame. She never asked for medals or monuments. But history cannot ignore her. She was a conductor of freedom, a soldier of justice, a general in everything but name. And her fight was not for herself. It was for everyone who believed in the right to be free. When Harriet Tubman died in 1913, she was buried with military honors. Her life had spanned from the chains of slavery to the birth of a new century, a bridge between darkness and dawn, and even now her spirit lives on. Every person who stands up to injustice, every woman who leads when others doubt her, every voice that refuses to be silenced, carries a piece of her courage. They said a black woman couldn't be a soldier. They said she couldn't lead, couldn't fight, couldn't win, but she did. And because she did, generations after her walk freer, proud air, and unafraid.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more Black histories.